guest. Another meeting will be held again now, but this time it has more social interactions. Tonight, we will enjoy the experience of our traditional performance. Then a speech will be delivered by our Gala dinner speaker, Professor Charles Egbo. So, stay tuned. still we have more performances, but it's going to be different. But after the speech of Professor Charles Egbo, President of the Chartered Institute of Building, who is invited now on the stage.
Assalamu alaikum, good evening and welcome. I have to introduce Professor Charles Egbo for his speech. But before I start, please, I would like to thank everybody for tonight and for a fantastic first day of the conference. It was really nice, the opening ceremony, the sessions, we attended most of them. They were brilliant presentations and good knowledge and research findings. I would like to thank Professor Wahib for his vision and leadership and continuous support. Without this vision and leadership, we couldn't transform the university. This is a truly international conference. If I count the nationalities in this room, there will be at least around 40 plus. Different nations, different people living, working in harmony, presenting, enjoying the night. So tonight it's a social event, and I'd like to thank once again Professor Amr, Professor David, Professor Paul, and Charles will introduce you properly. I would like to introduce, please, the scientific committee led by Professor Yazid, and the organizing committee led by Sir Abdullah Khaja, and especially Mariam, because everybody would have received some emails from Mariam Ali. I would like to acknowledge her. I would like to thank the scientific committee, the reviewers who have helped us in reviewing all the papers and the proceedings have been reviewed externally and internally, believe me. The quality of the proceedings is top quality with ISBN number, and we're trying to make sure that it's indexed somehow. We are going to select some papers from the proceedings, and we have a Journal of Applied Science in the university. It's a referee journal. It's going to be indexed soon, inshallah. We'll select some special issues for the journals from the proceedings. So this is yet another good news, I think, for the contributors who have traveled all the way. We said this morning from Australia and Canada. As it happened from Australia, it was Professor Surinas Pereira, which I taught him on the MSc IT at Salford University. And from Canada, it was Hassan Wafai, Dr. Hassan Wafai, who studied at Salford and then went to Canada. And then we have people from the UK, Europe, Turkey, Middle East, everywhere. I would like to acknowledge the support from our students, and especially the new Students' Council, who were elected last week. And they are all here. They are the stars of the university, and they are the ambassadors of the university. They are really, really nice. They are like my children, in fact. I'd like to thank Cesar Ukhaya for being the MC, even though she has forgotten me tonight. That's fine. I'll forgive her. Tomorrow morning, please, we start at 9 o'clock sharp with a keynote address by Professor Paul Ivy. There will be a big surprise before Professor Paul Ivy's. So please turn up on time, and we will let you know tomorrow morning the big surprise. But you have to be here, please, by 9 o'clock in order to finish on time. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce my very good friend, Professor Charles Egbo. I appointed him, by the way, Dave, in Salford as a professor, and he made the transformation in Salford. He became research student director, head of school, before he joined London South Bank University. So, you can hear me, or this was in my chest? I didn't know. And then he went to London South Bank as Dean of the Built Environment and Architecture, and now he's at the University of East London as Pro-Vice Chancellor for Education, and his boss used to work in Salford, Professor Amanda. Lucky you, Professor Charles, to be working at University of East London with Amanda. I work with her. Very nice lady. Tough, but nice. Huh? I can't, Professor Amr. I cannot tell you. And now he's president of the Chartered Institute of Building, which, as you note, has 50,000 people across the globe, and it was set up in 1834, headquartered in the UK, and supports construction management, research, development, training, and so on. So it's a pleasure for me to invite Professor Charles Egbo to appear on stage, and you can tell as many jokes as you want. Thank you.
Well, can I just say how hugely delighted and honored I am to be asked to come and say a few words. I was expecting to come as an after-dinner speaker, but you can see I'm here as a pre-dinner speaker. But there's nothing wrong about that. It's a huge privilege to be here amongst friends, because I have to say, looking at the faces, I know many people here. I suppose you will come to know many people if you've been around for about 35 years in the area of construction. So it is indeed a pleasure to be here. And as Ghassan said, I'm also privileged to be asked to say a few words in front of my bosses. And guess what? Not one boss, not two bosses, three bosses here. So I have to be, shall I say, a little bit careful and tactful in what I say. As Ghassan did say, he appointed me many, many years ago as a professor of project management and construction at Salford. And I've got here the Vice Chancellor of London South Bank University, Professor David Phoenix, appointed me as the Dean of School of the Built Environment at London South Bank University. And here you have Professor Paul Ivey, who was my boss in research and international priorities. So I have many reasons to be very, very careful in what I say tonight. But there's something common about them. Don't you see how well they look? And there's something in that. If you want to look very well, do appoint me as one of your employees. But what bosses say are very, very important, though. There was a friend asking another friend, so what made you become an entrepreneur and own your business? And the friend replied, it was something my last boss said. And he said, what exactly did your last boss said? He said, I was fired. Are you with me? And because he was fired, he went and then looked for a business for himself. Ladies and gentlemen, the beauty of being asked to give an after-dinner speech, especially when you're not told what you asked to talk about, is you have the latitude to say exactly what you want to say. But as I said, I need to be very, very careful. But I hope throughout this speech, which will be punctuated with some jokes here and there, but clean jokes they have to be, is to say something which I think it's really, really important. Especially in the area of innovation, the area of entrepreneurship, the area of technology and enterprise. And I will say something about innovation from a demand-led innovation. Not many people here know that as a young researcher, one of the first research projects I did in the very early 1990s was to do research in innovation and entrepreneurship and knowledge management in construction at a University College London. And it was really, really an eye-opener. As part of that project, I had to interview chief executive officers of highly innovative construction companies. And as a young researcher, finished my PhD at Salford, working my real first job, and I was going into industries and looking at the faces of these chief executive officers, asking them the questions you would expect a young researcher to ask. Why do you innovate? What are the challenges of innovation? What's the relationship between innovation and entrepreneurship? How come organizations that are seen to be innovative organizations suddenly go bust? What does it take to have sustained innovation? What's the role of knowledge in innovation? And what's the interplay between creativity, invention, and innovation? And how does entrepreneurship fit into that debate? Some of the questions you'll expect a young researcher to be asking. And In there, I learned quite an interesting aspect of the construction industry. At least I learned something around what do you call innovation in scissors? Someone says it's cutting edge technology. Are you with me? But it's important when you study innovation. And this morning I had the pleasure of attending some of the discussions and presentations, and they were absolutely rich. And that shows the quality of the gathering of this nature. And it's important when one looks at innovation to also take some reflective aspect of this and ask the question, what's the demand-led innovation in global construction industry today? Yes, technology has a role to play, and indeed it should play. But when you look at some of the challenges that confront global construction, I beg to ask the question, I think there's room for our study and research in innovation to start tackling some of the big areas. In every country in the world, in construction, our construction business model is broken. And I'd like to see innovations in that. What do I mean by the construction business model? If you look at any country, and I can give you an example of the United Kingdom where I've done much of my research. You look at the typical construction industry in any country, they are made up of many, many small construction industries and very, very few large industries. Construction organizations, especially those who are in contracting, most of them do not make profit margins of more than 2%. Then you ask yourself, if they make profit margins of 2% or less, how do they then begin to look into innovation and invest? And I have to say, over 60% of UK contracting organizations do not make more than 1% profit margin. And that's because of the way the business is set up. After 1976 in the United Kingdom, the issue of subcontracting came. And if you look at all these big boys, all the big contractors, what they do is they secure the project and then subcontract almost everything. And you look at the tier 1 subcontractors, they are able to make some money. And as you go to tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, indeed, nobody really cares about this small subcontractors, and they are there to survive. They are fighting for survival, and it's called running to the bottom line. Innovation is not the game, it's what they do to make money. So, whilst construction industry is good in product innovation, I think we have a challenge around process innovation and around administrative innovation. So my challenge to us all is, let's also make a room, make a space for process innovation. And part of the brokenness of our model for construction, it's, you look at the payment regime. Many of the members of the supply chain, especially at the second, third, and fourth tier, some of them are not paid within 16 days, even 60 days, even 120 days, because of the brokenness of the payment regime. I would like to see studies on innovativeness to improve the payment of these subcontractors. And why do I say that? That has a real impact to up-and-coming, interested young men and women that want to come into construction. So we just need to look at this very carefully. I just also want to say something I've been able to gather over the many years I've been looking into innovation and knowledge management and entrepreneurship. There's something that is common. between innovation and entrepreneurship, and it's the issue of risk. There is no innovation without an element of risk. And there is no real enterprise or entrepreneurship activity that hasn't got the issue of risk. So what does that tell us? It tells us really that part of innovation and part of entrepreneurship is to ask ourselves, how well are we placed to manage risks? And how well are we placed to actually deal with the chances and the rewards that exists in trying to make sense of innovation? There's one characteristic of innovation, and that is every innovation has an element of change. And of course, with change comes the issue of risk. So risk is something that brings enterprise and innovation together. And of course, when we talk about risk management, we talk about how we identify the risks, how we analyze the risks, and how we respond to the risks. And many of the scholars here who have had the pleasure of looking into risk management, and again, I've been really, really blessed that I've had the opportunity of supervising many PhD students in the area of risk management. And it's about using some of the important techniques, checklist, prompt list, end value management, Monte Carlo simulation, Ishikawa diagrams, and these are also important. And let me just tell you a story. I don't know whether you know the story of the lady and the tiger. I have one of my bosses who's always good at telling stories about kings. Let me tell you a story about a king and put it in the context of risk management. A king in a far land country offered a challenge to 3 young men. Each young man will be put in a room with 2 doors. The young man could open either door he pleased. If he opened the one, there came out of it a hungry tiger, the fiercest and the most cruel that could be procured, which would immediately tear him to pieces. But if he opened the other door, there came forth from it a lady, the most suitable to his years and station that His Majesty could select amongst his fair subjects. So I leave it to you which door to open, the left one or the right one. The first man refused to take the chance. He lived safe and died chaste. The second man hired risk assessment consultants. He collected all the available data on lady and tiger populations. He brought in sophisticated technology to listen for growling and detect the faintest whiff of perfume. He completed checklists. He developed a utility function and assessed his risk averseness. Finally, sensing that in a few more years he will be in no condition to enjoy the lady anyway, he opened the optimal door and was eaten by a low probability tiger. The third man took a course in tiger taming. He opened a door at random and was eaten by the lady. So the issue about this is we need to be careful about the risks we take in trying to innovate. But let me just talk about something more serious before I draw this to a close. The construction industry needs innovation. We need enterprising people. And why do I say that? I say that because the essence of the job we do in the built environment is to produce the built asset which is there to improve the life, quality of life of those who live, play, work, and pray in our built asset. So innovation should help that cause. This morning, I talked very briefly about the CIOB and our take on innovation. Innovation, again, for me, is the successful introduction, the successful exploitation of an idea, where that idea is new to the unit of adoption. So it's more than creativity, which is the bringing up of new idea. It's more than invention. It is the successful exploitation, and it is the intentional successful exploitation where there is real benefit. And the benefit doesn't have to be monetary benefit. It could be social benefit. So when we innovate, we need to think about not just coming up with the idea or inventing something. It's the successful exploitation in such a way that it adds meaning, it is value-laden, and it really provides for the community and the end users. And of course, when you look at it in great detail, it could be an emergent innovation, something that comes from the organization. It could be an adapted innovation, something you don't have, but it has come to a new unit of adoption, and you've made sense of it. And it could be an imposed innovation. And we can see so many imposed innovations, which is the new way of doing things, being imposed by the government through regulation. A good example in the UK is the CDM regulation that has transformed health and safety in construction sites. Every contractor, every individual is forced through regulation to be able to cope with health and safety. As a young student studying refurbishment management, looking at risks in construction, we used to have 195 deaths a year in the UK construction. Now you're looking at 25 deaths. 25 too many, but there's a reduction because of imposed innovation, imposed regulation. And of course, we could have innovations that could be disruptive, radical innovation. We could also have incremental innovations. Whatever type of innovation we do, we need to also have an intent towards getting something out of it. The world is full of serendipity, where we are trying to get something done, but suddenly and luckily, something else emerges from what we do. Yes, we can take the best of that, but we need to set out to doing that. Just to end, ladies and gentlemen, in my year as president of the Chartered Institute of Building, there's one area I have taken to pursue, and that is mental health in construction. I've had the privilege over the last 1 year of looking at mental health issues in all the construction industries in all parts of the world. And it struck me that here you have a sector that is providing improvement in welfare, well-being, and quality of life of the users. But the individuals that work in construction aren't looked after. I was trying to look at what that meant in the industry. And I'll look at the United Kingdom. In the year, 5-year gap between 2011 and 2016-17, 1,500 construction workers took their lives. That is huge. You look at America, it's even worse. You look at Australia, it's worse. Here you have an industry that is male-dominated, an industry that has characteristics almost different from others, an industry that is project-based, where projects start and project finish. You bring in people together to execute the project and everybody goes. Because it's male-dominated, people don't own up when they are stressed. And it has a really, really damaging issue in the mental well-being of those who work. People travel far distances to go to projects, very, very late. Risky projects, challenging sites. People aren't sure of their workload for the next 1 week, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months. That have a bearing on their mental attitude. My challenge is, when we talk about innovation, how can we look at process-driven innovation to help and improve mental health of our workers, those who create the built asset we are proud of? We should also think about them. They are important. So I just want to end by saying that innovation covers a whole lot of area. We are good in technological innovation. You look at the construction industry, the complex building, the tall buildings, the beautiful buildings, and the buildings infused by all kinds of technology. Building information technology, artificial intelligence, the role of Internet of Things, big data analytics, all playing an important role, but they should continue. But also let's look at the process-driven innovation and not just the technological innovation. But let's come nearer home and look at those who are involved in creating this built asset and look after them. As Theodore Roosevelt once said, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Charles, for this inspirational, touchy speech, especially after hearing the stories. Thank you all, and now please enjoy your dinner. Thank you, and see you all tomorrow.